Yeah, so I want to talk about what I've been working on lately. I've kind of gone heads down and just been working on stuff. So this all kind of started with me not really being happy with the giant, like Abigail and Dore pile drives. I tried different stuff, was never really happy with it. Like the animation frames really just weren't there for it. But I eventually stumbled onto, I think, what is a pretty good solution for it, and along the way ended up, doing some nice things. So just as a reference, this is the original Final Fight, and something that I always hated about this game was when you do a pile drive, you notice that Hager kind of like awkwardly, jitters, up off the ground, after a pile drive because due to the way the collisions are handled, and so I'll zoom in on that and slow motion it, but basically what's going on though is that for pretty much the whole time you're controlling the character in the original game, the collider that the game is using to interact with the world is always the same. And so, even though there are certain frames of animation, like the pile drive frame of animation, or maybe like his diving attack, where he's actually higher up off the ground, because of the way they do the colliders, he actually kind of lands way sooner than his body physically looks like it should hit the ground. But the problem is, like the pile drive kind of has to hit the ground or it looks stupid. And so when they resolve the collisions, they basically just make Hager awkwardly, just move upward, to reset the position so that he isn't kind of like moving through the floor, or like or just too far down. But basically, what I did is I went in there and redoing the way the grabs in the game work, and the collisions for them. I now basically actually let characters really hit the bottom before they land, and then that basically allows you to like really smoothly resolve the collisions with no bouncing around. Now, as part of this, I have this utility here that I just called object test. Although object test is actually kind of a stupid name because I mean this thing is so polished and has so many features. It really probably should just be called a sprite gallery. Actually, you know what? I think I'm just going to change that now. Um, Yeah, because this is something in the next version that's going to be enabled for anybody who's curious and just wants to screw around. But what's really cool about this though is that you can go through every character, you can go through every frame of animation, and you can see even like how the grabs interact with each other and like move things around. So for example, like if I do guy and I do grab, and I do, you can see how, for each character, how, like the relationship between the, characters when they're grabbing different ones. And so you can even move around, the offsets, to see if something looks better. You can choose whether or not, the grab is lifting the other character, and if he is lifting, you can see how it changes the shadow. Where like the baked in shadow disappears if they're in midair, and then a shadow will be cast on the ground. And then you can change the priority, like if you want the character to be behind or in front of the thing when grabbing it, all that kind of stuff. And actually, the nice thing about this is I am kind of so. I mean, eventually, what I want to do is I want to have you know all all this stuff released where you can look at all the raw graphics data and look at the sprite gallery, And if you fiddle around in here and actually say, you know what, I think you blew it on this, or like the original one just sucked or something. We should probably change this. Like this grab offset, doing this actually looks better. You could send that stuff into me, and I could make those adjustments. Because really, there are enough interactions where it is very difficult for one person, one set of eyes to actually catch everything, and there probably, there's probably room for for improvement there. Um, but yeah, and see, that's one of the things that happened with this too. See, so part of this, what I did, I basically unified the behavior of grabbing a weapon and grabbing characters, where it's all kind of handled the same way now, and they all have the same, more robust capabilities, whereas they were a little bit more limited before. So even like on, the Molotov and the other weapons, you can see those offsets, for each frame. Um, yeah. And so it is kind of interesting, seeing that stuff. Um, even just you can cycle through the animations, for each type of animation. So basically, like this redesign kind of involved. What it basically involved doing was, so you probably remember in the past, um, where I added the ability to have a unique graphic for each weapon, for each frame of animation for the characters holding it. And so basically all these changes kind of got me to a place where I can do the same thing with all of the grabs in the game, not just the weapons, even like the interactions between the characters. So just to show you, like, like an example of this, if I go to guys, grab attack. um, so see here is, guy grabbing or grab attacking Jake, and you could choose to change the priority, things like that. This is like this one that we're looking at right now is how it was in the original arcade game. Um, I really am not happy with a lot of the original offsets, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I kind of took this on, because you can see, like, for example here, see, like that's just a terrible grab offset. I mean, guy's knee isn't even making impact. It's not even making an impact with Axel here. It's just and see that too. Like these just aren't good offsets, and I can do so much better. And so let me just show you an example of one of the ones I've already done. See how, with this bread one, I actually have a special masked out graphic so that I can actually like really get the characters, like whether they're headbutting or kneeing somebody or doing whatever. I can get these interesting interactions where parts of the sprite are actually overlapping and parts are behind, and so on, and so you end up with this really nice 3D look for everything, because see, like in this, you know guy's behind bread, but bread's head is overlapping guy's arm, and then guy's arm is overlapping bread, and guy's leg is overlapping bread's leg, but then guy's left arm is overlapping bread's. See how it's like they're all tangled up, and so you have that really kind of nice, depth that you get out of that you just couldn't get by just doing a boilerplate. We're either going to say, yeah, it's above or behind, and we're just going to reuse all the same frames. It's just inherently limited. So I can do all kinds of really nice stuff. Um, and you might think it's not a big deal, but it really is, because when you play the game, just subconsciously, everything feels so much solid, because it's so much more solid, because everything is making contact. Nothing is just like hitting air. It's actually pretty nice. And once again, like a lot of this got brought on um, because I ended up, like I said, redoing uh, the giant, grabs, and you can see kind of what I came up with here. So, so here's one of the giants, and basically I had the idea where I said, okay, you know what, I'm looking for, okay, here we go. So he has this, aerial attack. And I said, you know what? That animation actually looks dangerously similar to Hager's pile drive frame. And I said, you know what? I can take advantage of this. But see, the problem is you can't just overlap a character on top of the giant there without it looking stupid, because basically in this frame, the giant is drawn at an angle. And so what you need to do is you need to get the characters, that are being grabbed in between. Basically, they need to be in between the giant's legs for it to look good. And what I have basically, allows you to do that. So if I go to grab jump attack here, see, so here's like the guy grab jump, and basically what I've done here, the end result is that that I now have parity between the giants and Hager, where they basically have the same number of animation frames for their pile driver, and now the giant pile driver actually kind of looks like a pile driver. So you can see, so there's a frame, and see how with these masked out graphics, you have that, like I said, that three dimensionality where the character is actually in between the giant's legs. And you can see how this applies, to like all of the different characters, and and it's nice, like you really get you really and see, and this is the scientific term for this is head to ass embeddedness ratio, and so what you're really going for is like for all these pile drivers, you want to get heads as deeply embedded in asshole as possible, and that basically gets you that. So it's pretty nice, and see, and it also lets you do really hilarious stuff, like see how you can just like arbitrarily like make parts of characters overlap over to accentuate features and everything. It's pretty fucking great, man. And there are so many grab interactions where being able to do this adds like so much depth to the to the way the game looks, and makes everything look so much more solid. And so you can see, if I just kind of go through the animation, it's like, basically, and like I said, once again, this is following exactly the conventions for Hager's pile drive. Hager's pile drive starts off basically reversing pane high, going down to reverse pane low, flipping upside down, and then finally head and asshole. So so basically they're they're equivalent now, and and when playing the game, it looks pretty good. And you can see too, when playing it, it's really nice with what we have here, where you see how, like when the character bounces off the ground, because I can actually go all the way to the ground there with a unique collider, you have a really smooth resolution of the collision, of the world collision. And yeah, I'm telling you, man, it's pretty fucking great. And like I said, this stuff just, it just gave me the ability to really clean things up a lot for the Giants. I'm pretty happy, with this. I still have some more stuff to do. So the other thing too is like the flip side of this also, with the new grab system, I also have the ability to have unique colliders for all grab interactions. And basically what this means is, when you pile drive somebody, like say you're Hager and you pile drive Bread, the hurt collider for that shouldn't be as big as the hurt collider for when Hager is pile driving like Eddie or Damned or something. And so now I can actually have unique colliders for every grab interaction. And it also, that also comes in really handy when doing things like, grabbing a character and using them as a human shield, and having a projectile hit the grab character, where you can have all these unique colliders that really just make every interaction feel exactly right, where everything should hit where you would expect it to. And also part of the colliders, the colliders are also used for things like calculating the shadow positioning of grabbed objects. And so, for example, like so here, see, so right now, Hager's grabbing bread, shadow's on the ground, and see how basically that shadow is like nicely right under where it is because it's using that unique collider to determine where to cast the shadow, and see how when I jump up on things, it actually is dynamically calculating the height of the shadow. So even though Hager is up on the barrel and his floor height is higher, um, than bread, it knows to cast bread shadow on the ground. See how if I move, see how it actually dynamically, um, adjusts that shadow, using that collider. So I mean, see, I mean, again, this is the kind of stuff that makes me laugh because, basically, don't you think it's hilarious that in this game you can literally have hundreds of objects on the screen at once, doing all of these, more complicated, collisions and calculations, using 0% CPU, and somehow the Turtles game slows down with stages that don't even have multiple floor heights with 6 players when it's really doing absolutely nothing. Like I said, there's something incredibly wrong. I mean, like I said, computers are so fast, you can just do anything. You can just anything you can think of basically, and it's like, oh, I added all this stuff, and I'm doing all these extra oh, gee, it's using 0% CPU. Oh, wow, okay. You know, it, but in any case, so I'm wrapping this up now. Creating, different masked out graphics for different, grab interactions, making everything look really nice, adjusting all the grab offsets. I mean, I really have gone in and improved a lot of the grab offsets. Like I said, there was a lot of them in the original game that just did not look good. Things just were not making contact. It wasn't good. It wasn't right. So that's all going to be a lot better in the next version. This was actually a huge undertaking because it touched so many parts of the game. Because the thing about Final Fight is, and really like the Capcom beat 'em ups in general, their distinguishing characteristic probably is their grappling system. Like that's the one thing where Capcom kind of destroyed the competition. Like if you look at other beat 'em ups, they all have terrible grappling systems compared to the Capcom games. It's funny because like even in Streets of Rage 4, like Max still can't actually walk around with a character that he's grabbing. They haven't even achieved parity with the 1989 Final Fight. It's actually pretty nuts. It is actually kind of funny like how primitive most beat 'em ups are compared to even the original Final Fight, let alone this one. But that's the world we live in. The incompetence is infinite and unbounded. So yeah, it's feeling pretty damn polished, pretty slick. I'm happy with the way things are turning out there. Yeah, and actually like for some of these things too, it makes a lot of the like the priorities slightly more complicated than they were before too, because basically if you have scenarios where like you want to say, okay, like this would be the priority of drawing the graphics. Like first, so say Hager's or say Guy's grabbing bread and he's he's holding a knife and he's doing his grab attack. So you'd want to start off basically by you draw Guy's shadow, you draw the Guy object, and then you draw the masked out sprite of bread on top of that, so that it looks like they're kind of tangled up. And then because Guy's holding a knife, you would draw the knife on top of all that so that it looked like, Guy was still holding his hand, which would be like on top of Guy. And so some things were changed, to make those priorities, possible there too. Um, yeah, and there have just been just like a lot of really nice, just kind of basic, gameplay tweaks. Like yeah, I finally went in and implemented, like the famous, if you jump backwards, you actually jump faster and farther. And I did the some nice improvements for Abigail's, enrage, where like before he couldn't be moving. You couldn't trigger the enrage if you happened to be walking. You had to like stop and hold still and then start it. But now you can do it while walking, and then it'll just interrupt it, and start doing it. But I mean seriously, like I need to see if I can even remember all the things I've changed, because like I said, when I go quiet and stop, flapping my jaws, I'm probably doing a lot of stuff. And so, a lot of stuff has been getting done. Like I've made massive, massive changes under the hood. So many improvements, little optimizations. Oh yeah. So, and here's the funny thing too. So get this. So I added all this crap, right? And so after adding it, the game now uses 20 megabytes less RAM, and like over 20 megabytes less VRAM. So I mean, so yeah, so basically all these enhancements, all these added graphics and everything, and yet somehow it ended up smaller. So that's all really nice stuff. So yeah, so hopefully I can wrap this up soon. What I'm working on right now basically is, defining the custom collision boxes for, the different, grabs, so that you can have like unique hurt boxes for Haggard pile driving different characters, for example. And so once all that's hooked up, and everything looks pretty good, there will be a new version of it, floating around. Oh, and you know what? One thing I want to mention too that has nothing to do with Final Fight. Um, Fuck Ron Gilbert, that cocksucker, who was doing the Monkey Island stuff. So you might have seen that there was a story about Monkey Island being criticized for having, like shitty Nickelodeon art, in the new Monkey Island game coming out. And basically, he's a bitch, he's a soft pussy, and he said, "Oh, people are criticizing the game. It's so beautiful. How dare you?" And the bottom line is, all you have to do is look at the original, like VGA Monkey Island games, and see like the awesome cutscene art and everything that actually had style and elegance, and then look at this new shit that looks like offensive, disgusting, millennial, Cartoon Network art, and don't give me that fucking shit. Like, there's no excuse for a game that comes out in 2022 to look worse than a game that came out in 1993 or 1992. So yeah, bug off, Ron Gilbert. You're a fucking cocksucker.